class. And we're here at Someday Farm, and we've been asked to answer a few questions, and I'm kind of thinking I'll just do them one at a time. I thought I'd just record it rather than wait for it to come up organically. And then I thought, well, might as well just do it live. And particularly if there's interaction, you guys might have other questions to ask. I'd be particularly interested in getting insightful, interesting, novel questions. So take them into account if you type them in. So this is just a story about my meeting my teacher, who is here, maybe Bruce Dearborn Walker. I thought I would just start with saying, I'm sat here at the front of the school at the Kamidana, and it's been a couple years now, but it's still so odd to me. But it's not just odd, that's really not a word that covers it. It hasn't been normalized, integrated, those aren't quite right. I'm not used to it, but that doesn't really cover it. I've been doing these arts for 40 years or something. And I've always heard about the old masters, the mythic and the real, separated by geography and chronology, and seen their pictures in the books and the inscriptions and the scrolls in the museums, and then so there's that world, and then there's, well, here's my teacher, and I go to class again tomorrow night, or here's another my teacher's who's in town, so there's a big workshop, so I'll be seeing my teacher. So there's always been these two worlds. The out of reach, the passed on, and then, my teachers, you'd see as often as you might see, maybe fairly regularly, maybe somewhat regularly, maybe occasionally. But in the last couple of years, since my teacher's passed, I now have a teacher who has bridged that gap, which I hadn't really thought of. So it's just still, it doesn't feel like what I know yet, to have a man I know who is dead up on my wall, overseeing every class at the highest point in the school, centralized. It's the northerly wall, so it's south-facing. So maybe somebody else comes in here and, there's you have Ueshiba up on the wall. You've never met him. That makes sense. And there's, I guess you can't see it on the screen, but there's pictures of other people on the Kami Dana, like Gandhi and Kurli Baba, and another teacher of mine who passed a couple years later also had his picture on the Kami Dana out of view, and another picture of him up over here in the studio. And neither of those feel like it's what I know. But I probably have to come to know it they're not going to come back. That's what it is. I certainly try and keep them alive in my teachings and my practice and my discipline. But anyway, the point of this was supposed to just be a very short, little, simple story. And it happens to be about Bruce Walker. And I thought, well, just there he is. But now I'm thinking about him being on the wall as a reality. I felt like saying a few things about that. Anyway, you could have skipped into this video. So this is just a story about intention and sincerity, and having intention and sincerity at the start of a practice. I think are intensely useful to have the sort of quality practice that I would value highest. I would say that they're necessary. You could certainly have a practice without that intention and sincerity. And that could be a practice session. And here I'm thinking about my life practice. And so I came to a class, and I think he called it a seminar. I don't remember what the term was. I think, it was like an introduction to Tai Chi seminar, something like that. And as I remember, it's an hour. So he puts a notice in the paper. Come down Saturday at 1 p.m. Free introduction to Tai Chi. You get 20 people to come in. Some of them maybe have done karate. Some of them don't know what they're in for. Some of them heard Tai Chi is supposed to be good for you. Maybe this is how I get into it. And I think he would generally start with just a little welcome, but he wasn't super... I don't know. I don't want to say he wasn't welcoming. That's not fair. But he wasn't touchy-feely in that regard. So he would have this workshop, seminar. He'd demonstrate the form, talk a little bit about the history of Tai Chi, answer questions. And then, of course, he'd say, well, obviously Saturday at 1 o'clock, you guys are all available. So we start next week and we do a, 10-week session, something like that. Yeah, 10 weeks. And it's $75 or whatever it was. So I did the seminar. At some point, I wish I could say, but at some point in the seminar, I realized this is for me, both the art and the person and the place. I'm in. I know I'm coming. And at the end of the seminar, people would come up and have particular questions. Can I pay by check? Or what if I can't start the first class? Or I have a bad knee. Is this for me? Just different questions. And so at the end of the session, I waited. I believe that to be the last person, that's kind of what I would usually do. People had gotten their coats and left, and you could see some people aren't coming back. Some people are coming back, different sort of, takes, and they would say the things that they're going to say, do the things that they're going to do, leave, question, whatever their thoughts were. And then I walked up. Hello.
Good evening. Sorry to interrupt.
Hooray! Yay!
Notebooks stack.
Oh, Thank you. Yay. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's amazing. Appreciate you so much.
Enjoy.
Yay. Yay, Amy, thank you. So we just had somebody drop off a donation. So that's really, really sweet. So I walked up, waited my turn, and I said, thank you. And I said, I'll be here next week, I think, something like that. Or I'm signing up, or I can't wait to start. However I said it, I'm sure I just said something like, I'll see you next week, meaning I'm in, expect to see me, and I'll bring my payment, you know. And he had just worked, you know. He had spent an hour being on stage, and then let's say another 15 minutes answering questions, and probably a half hour getting the studio ready and turning the heat on and lights on and, you know, cleaning, mopping, or whatever he's doing. And so he's spent to some extent. You want to kind of do your best, put your best foot forward, you know, sort of be on. And then it can be draining to deal with and you don't know these people, you don't know what the questions are, so you have to be, you know, fairly agile in your mind to, you know, receive the varying questions and address them. So I'm the last person leaving, so I'm sure on some level, you know, he's just ready to be done and get on with his day and go get lunch or whatever. And here's another person who has something they want to say. And of course, he's probably just thinking, he said he'll be here next week. That means money. That means I did my job. Can I just be done with my job? Goodbye. You know, I'm sure on some level. But this is my moment to say something that's about me, and it's about him, and it's about this relationship that we're about to embark on. And so I said, thanks. I'm excited. This is going to be great. I'll be here next week. You know, probably didn't even say all that. Probably just said, thank you. I'll be here next week. And he sort of mumbled. Yeah. And then I put my hand out. He put his hand out. I shook his hand. And I looked him in the eyes while we're shaking hands. And I said, I intend to be your best student. I intend to be your best student. Now, what was important for me was the intention behind the statement, the sincerity behind the statement. I wasn't saying a thing I thought he wanted to hear. I probably wasn't super thinking about what he wanted to hear, what his needs were. I probably wasn't able to contemplate how that would sound to him in light of the rest of his career and his other students. But I knew that it was important for me to set that intention, that sincere intention. And I knew it was important for me to do it aloud. So not just say it to myself. Like, make it real, give it birth into the world. Have him hear it and have him focus on it. Like, we're shaking hands, I'm looking him in the eyes, we're very close. It's not my responsibility for how he receives it. Will he believe it? Does he laugh it off? Is he not even really processing and paying attention and he's thinking about his lunch? I don't know. But it was very important, formative, it was foundation building for me to say those precise words with absolute sincerity, to truly pour that intention out so that it would set and form a foundation for my efforts in this practice, which of course became like my life, my life's work. I intend to be your best student. Now, turns out I never was his best student because he had students before me that continued when I continued. So the likelihood that I'm going to catch up to them is pretty silly. It's also pretty silly to think that we were measuring the students by best and worst. There's no hierarchy like that in our school, in these studies. But the idea of the intention is that I am going to be fully present, deeply caring, authentic, sincere, effortful, and consistent. Right? So I was really basically saying, I'm going to manifest Kung Fu in this effort without saying it in that way. But I will say that in time and supported by that foundation, I will be your best student. I became as good of a student of his in his system, art, school, program, whatever, as I believe I could have been. Ultimately, it didn't really matter if there were other students of his that were better, whatever that is, than I. Doesn't actually matter. But the effect of that statement was that it supported the work that allowed me to do the best, apply myself the best, the most consistently, the most broadly and deeply, the most full application of the self to the practice of the process as I could. And so I feel like, given the circumstances and the reality of the language and the the way time works and everything, I feel like I did become the best student of his that I could be, given we can't really measure how good a student is, and it doesn't even really matter. What matters is the application of the self to the practice of the process, the Kung Fu. But for me, that was, deeply formative. I didn't think it all through beforehand. I'm going to say this, and this will set the foundation, but I got to make sure I'm shaking his hand. Don't forget to look in the eye. I just knew I was embarking on a real commitment, and I wanted to say it out loud so that it could be heard, so that it was real, and perhaps so it's something I can live up to and, be inspired by or driven by or coached by or something. I don't know. Anyway, this is something that I'll often say to my own teacher, who is not Bruce, but it's my form, or it is the principles that I'm endeavoring to shed light upon in the form. And so I'll say to myself when I practice, to that teacher, that principle, that form, I intend to be your best student. Deeply sincere. Fully conscious intent. Very present. And then I'll embark on the practice. And I think for me, the measure of a practice, and therefore the measure of the man, the measure of the life, the measure of the health, and the growth, is not really going to be how well did you do, but how well did you intend? How fully present were you there? How clear was your intent? So that's just a little bit of story of my very first encounter with Bruce, not even a class. So if you'd like to hear other stories, something you'd like to know, particularly if it's a novel question or something that would inspire a story about my personal journey, please type in the comments and let me know. Thank you. Thank you, Bruce.